The air in Venice was thick with salt and secrets, the kind of night that clung to your skin and whispered trouble. Stefani Germanotta, better known to the world as Lady Gaga, stepped off the gondola, her heels clicking against the slick cobblestones. The palazzo loomed ahead, a crumbling giant of marble and shadow, its windows glowing like eyes watching her every move. She adjusted her mask, a delicate thing of black lace and feathers that barely hid her sharp green eyes. The invitation had come in a velvet envelope, sealed with wax, promising an exclusive masquerade ball hosted by some billionaire named Vincent Moretti. Exclusive was her kind of word, but something about the invite felt off, like a song played in the wrong key. She smoothed her gown, a deep crimson number that hugged her curves and shimmered under the moonlight. The crowd around her was a sea of masks, all feathers and gold and secrets. They moved like they owned the night, their laughter sharp, their whispers sharper. Stefani felt the familiar thrill of being watched, but tonight it wasn't just fans. Someone's gaze lingered too long, heavy, like a hand on her shoulder. She shook it off. Probably just the vibe of this place, she thought. Venice was all drama and decay, a city drowning in its own beauty. Inside, the palazzo was a fever dream. Chandeliers dripped crystals that caught the light and threw it across frescoed walls, half-faded scenes of gods and lovers. The air smelled of wax and wine, with a faint undercurrent of something metallic she couldn't place. A string quartet played something haunting, the notes curling around the room like smoke. Guests swirled in pairs, their masks turning faces into mysteries. A man with a silver wolf mask brushed past her, his cologne sharp enough to cut glass. A woman in a peacock mask laughed too loudly, her eyes darting like she was waiting for a bomb to drop. Stefani grabbed a flute of champagne from a passing tray, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. She scanned the room, looking for Vincent. The invite had said he'd greet her personally, but so far, nothing. Just a crowd of strangers playing at being someone else. She was used to standing out, but here, everyone was a star in their own twisted story. Her eyes caught a woman standing alone by a velvet curtain, her mask a stark white, carved with roses. The woman's gaze locked on Stefani, unblinking, like she knew something Stefani didn't. Creepy, Stefani thought, but she held the stare until the woman turned away, slipping into the crowd. Stefani Germanotta, as I live and breathe, a voice purred behind her. She turned to find a man in a gold lion mask, his suit tailored to perfection. His accent was Italian, smooth as the canals outside. Vincent Moretti. Welcome to my little soiree. Little? Stefani raised an eyebrow, her voice dry. This place looks like Versailles had a baby with a haunted house. Vincent laughed, a sound that didn't quite reach his eyes. You have a way with words, Signorina. I trust you're enjoying the mystery. Mystery's my thing, she said, sipping her champagne. But I'm wondering why you invited me. I don't exactly blend in with the trust fund crowd. Oh, but you're the spark this night needs, Vincent said, leaning closer. His mask hid half his face, but his smile was all charm and no warmth. A star like you draws eyes. And tonight, eyes are everything. She didn't like the way he said that, like he was playing a game she hadn't signed up for. Before she could press him, a woman in an emerald mask cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. Vincent, darling, you're neglecting your other guests. She shot Stefani a look that could freeze fire, then pulled him away. Stefani watched them go, her gut twisting. Something was off about this guy, and it wasn't just his overpriced suit. She wandered toward the edge of the ballroom, where the crowd thinned and the shadows grew thicker. That's when she saw her again, the woman in the white rose mask. She was older, maybe 60, her silver hair pinned up like she'd stepped out of another century. She stood by a cracked mirror, her reflection splintered into a dozen pieces. Stefani approached, her curiosity outweighing the warning bells in her head. You look like you know something, Stefani said, keeping her tone light. Care to share? The woman's lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. Some things are better left unseen, Signorina Germanotta, she said, her voice low, accented, like she'd been born in this city's bones. This palazzo keeps its secrets close. And not all masks hide faces. Stefani frowned. What's that supposed to mean? The woman leaned in, her breath cool against Stefani's ear. Beware the one who smiles too wide. They carry a blade. Before Stefani could respond, the woman slipped away, her white gown vanishing into the crowd like a ghost. Okay, that was weird, Stefani thought, her heart picking up speed. She wasn't one for cryptic nonsense, but something about the woman's words stuck, like a splinter under her skin. She turned back to the ballroom, ready to find Vincent and get some answers, when a scream tore through the air. The music stopped, the notes dying like a choked breath. Guests froze, their masks turning toward the courtyard doors. Stefani pushed through the crowd, her pulse loud in her ears. Outside, the air was colder, the moonlight sharp. A small group had gathered around something on the ground. She shoved past a man in a raven mask and stopped dead. A guest lay sprawled on the cobblestones, his mask a grotesque jester's face, frozen in a grin. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and glistening, seeping from a slash across his throat. His eyes stared up at the sky, empty. Whispers erupted around her, panicked, accusing. Who is he? Someone hissed. Nobody knows, the masks, another voice trailed off. Stefani's stomach churned, but she couldn't look away. The man's hand clutched a broken wine glass, the shards glinting like teeth. She noticed a ring on his finger, gold, with a crest she didn't recognize. Her eyes flicked to the crowd, searching for the woman in the white mask, but she was gone. Vincent appeared, his face pale beneath his mask. Everyone, inside, he barked, his charm replaced by something harder. Now. Stefani stayed put, her mind racing. A murder, here, in the middle of this circus? She wasn't a cop, but she'd dealt with enough shady people to know this wasn't random. Someone in this crowd had blood on their hands, and they were still here, hiding behind a mask. She glanced at the body again, her eyes catching on a scrap of fabric caught in the man's fingers, red silk, torn. Her gaze swept the guests filing back inside. A woman in a red gown caught her eye, her mask glittering with rubies. She moved too quickly, her shoulders tense, like she was running from something. Stefani's grip tightened on her champagne flute. The night had just gotten a lot more interesting, and a lot more dangerous. She wasn't leaving until she figured out who was playing killer in this masquerade, and what they wanted next. The ballroom felt smaller now, the air thick with fear and too many bodies pressed too close. Stefani Germanata, still clutching her champagne flute, stood near the courtyard doors, her eyes scanning the masked faces. The jester-masked guest's body was gone, carried off by Vincent's staff like a bad prop, but the bloodstain lingered on the cobblestones outside, dark and accusing. Whispers buzzed like flies, guests trading theories and glances, their masks hiding everything but their paranoia. Stefani's crimson gown felt too tight, her mask itching against her skin. A murder had just happened, and nobody was leaving until dawn. This wasn't a party anymore. It was a cage. She caught sight of Vincent across the room, his gold lion mask glinting as he spoke to a cluster of guests. His gestures were smooth, too smooth, like he was selling calm instead of feeling it. Stefani didn't buy it. A man like that didn't get to host a ball this lavish without some skeletons in his closet. She needed answers, and she wasn't waiting for him to spoon-feed them. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares, her heels clicking like a countdown. "Vincent," she called, her voice cutting through the murmurs. He turned, his smile tight, like it was painted on. "We need to talk." "Signorina Germanata," he said, excusing himself from the group. "This is hardly the time for chit-chat." "Chit-chat?" She raised an eyebrow, her tone sharp. "A guy's throat just got slit in your backyard." "I'd say it's exactly the time." His eyes flickered, but he kept that polished grin. "The authorities have been notified. They'll handle it when they arrive at dawn. Until then, let's not panic the guests." "Dawn's hours away," Stefani said, stepping closer. "And I'm not waiting for some cop to wade through this mess." "Who is he?" "The dead guy?" Vincent's jaw tightened, just for a second. "I don't know." "The masks, you see." Nobody uses real names tonight. Convenient, she muttered, her mind flashing to the red silk in the victim's hand. She glanced at the crowd, searching for the woman in the ruby mask she'd seen earlier. Gone. Of course. You're telling me you invited 100 strangers to your creepy mansion and didn't keep a guest list? It's a masquerade, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Anonymity is the point. But rest assured, I'll cooperate fully with the police. Yeah, you're a real Boy Scout, Stefani said, not hiding her skepticism. She was about to press him harder when a new voice cut in, sharp and smoky. You're wasting your breath, darling. He's slipperier than a Venetian eel. Stefani turned to see a woman leaning against a pillar, her mask a sleek black cat with emerald studs. She was tall, her blonde hair spilling over a silver gown that screamed money. Her lips curved in a half-smile, like she knew something the rest of the room didn't. And you are? Stefani asked, sizing her up. Ellie Kane, the woman said, extending a gloved hand. Journalist. I cover the kind of stories people like Vincent don't want told. Stefani shook her hand, feeling the strength in Ellie's grip. Stefani. But you knew that. Hard not to, Ellie said, her eyes glinting. You're the only one here who can't hide, mask or no mask. So, what's your deal? You playing detective now? Somebody's gotta, Stefani said, glancing at Vincent, who was already slipping back into the crowd. This place is giving me the creeps, and I don't trust Mr. Smooth over there to tell me what's what. Ellie laughed, low and throaty. Smart. Vincent's got more secrets than this palazzo has rats. Want a tip? Check the courtyard again. They missed something. Stefani's pulse quickened. Like what? Ellie shrugged, her smile teasing. You'll know it when you see it. Just don't expect it to make sense yet. Before Stefani could ask more, Ellie melted into the crowd, her silver gown catching the light like a fish slipping through water. Stefani cursed under her breath. Cryptic types were starting to get on her nerves. But Ellie's tip was the only lead she had, so she headed back to the courtyard, her heart thudding louder than the quartet starting up again inside. The courtyard was quieter now, the crowd thinned out. The bloodstain was still there, smeared where someone had tried to clean it. Stefani crouched, her gown pooling around her, and scanned the cobblestones. The moonlight caught something small, glinting near a rosebush. She reached for it, her fingers brushing cold metal. A glove, black leather, stained with blood. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't some party favor. This was evidence, and it was way too close to where the body had been. She straightened, tucking the glove into her clutch. Her eyes darted around, half expecting someone to jump out of the shadows. That's when she noticed him, a man standing by the courtyard's edge, his mask a stark white skull. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark suit blending into the night. He wasn't moving, just watching her, his head tilted like a predator sizing up prey. Hey, she called, her voice steady despite the chill crawling up her spine. You got a problem? He didn't answer, just turned and walked away, his steps silent. Stefani's grip tightened on her clutch. Okay, that guy's on the list, she thought. She was about to follow when a shout came from the ballroom, loud and angry. You're all acting like nothing happened. The voice was rough, male, cutting through the music. Stefani hurried back inside, the glove heavy in her bag. The crowd had parted around a man in a tattered crow mask, his paint-splattered jacket out of place among the silks and satins. He was pointing at Vincent, his hands shaking. Jake Russo, Ellie whispered, appearing at Stefani's side like a ghost. Artist. Hates everyone here. Especially Vincent. Somebody died, and you're all dancing like it's nothing. Jake shouted, his voice raw. You think masks make you untouchable? You're wrong. Vincent raised a hand, his voice calm but cold. Jake, you're upset. Let's discuss this privately. Upset? Jake laughed, bitter. You invited us here to play your games, and now someone's dead. You know who he was, don't you? The room went quiet, every mask turned toward Vincent. Stefani's eyes narrowed. Jake was unhinged, but he wasn't wrong. Vincent's calm was starting to feel like a mask of its own. She stepped forward, her voice loud enough to carry. "He's got a point," she said, locking eyes with Vincent. "You keep saying you don't know the guy, but I'm not buying it." "What's the deal, Vincent? Who'd want someone dead at your party?" The crowd murmured, tension rippling like a stone dropped in water. Vincent's smile faltered, just for a second. "I assure you, I'm as shocked as anyone," he said. "But let's not turn this into a witch hunt." "Too late," Stefani said, her tone dry. She glanced at Jake, who was breathing hard, his eyes wild behind his mask. He looked like he was one bad decision away from a fistfight. Or worse. Ellie leaned in, her voice a whisper. "Careful, Stefani. Jake's got a temper, and he's not the only one with a reason to hate Vincent. That glove you found? Might belong to someone like him." Stefani's heart skipped. She hadn't told Ellie about the glove. Either this woman was psychic, or she was watching way too closely. Before she could call her out, a woman's scream echoed from the hallway, high and panicked. The crowd surged toward the sound, masks bobbing like a flock of startled birds. Stefani pushed through, her pulse racing. The scream came from a side corridor, dim and lined with faded portraits. A woman in a sapphire mask stood trembling, pointing at the floor. There, half hidden in the shadows, was a single red feather, streaked with blood. Stefani's eyes flicked to the crowd, searching for the ruby-masked woman in the red gown. Still nowhere. But that feather, it was from a mask like hers. She was sure of it. "Someone's playing games," Stefani muttered, her mind spinning. The glove, the feather, Jake's outburst, Vincent's lies. This wasn't just a murder. It was a puzzle, and she was stuck in the middle of it, with a killer who wasn't done yet. The corridor felt like a trap, the air heavy with dust and the faint tang of blood. Stefani Germanata stood over the red feather, its blood-streaked edges glowing under the flickering sconces. The woman in the sapphire mask was still trembling, muttering about curses and ghosts, while the crowd pressed in, their masked faces a blur of curiosity and fear. Stefani's crimson gown brushed the floor as she crouched, her eyes locked on the feather. It was no accident, not with that blood. Someone wanted it found, and she was starting to think this killer was enjoying the show. Her clutch, heavy with the bloodied glove she'd found earlier, pressed against her hip. "Too many pieces, not enough picture." "Everybody back," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the whispers. The crowd shuffled, but nobody left. They were hungry for drama, these masked vultures. She stood, scanning the faces, searching for the woman in the ruby mask and red gown. Still missing. Convenient, she thought, her gut twisting. That feather could be hers, but Stefani wasn't jumping to conclusions. Not yet. A hand touched her shoulder, and she spun, ready to snap. It was Ellie Kane, her black cat mask glinting with emerald studs. "You're stirring up a storm, Stefani," Ellie said, her voice low, teasing. "Keep this up, and you'll have the whole room pointing fingers." "Maybe they should," Stefani shot back, her eyes narrowing. "You seem to know a lot, Ellie. Care to spill what you're holding back?" Ellie's lips curved, but her eyes stayed cool. "Patience, darling. I'm on your side. For now." She nodded toward the feather. "That's a clue, but it's not the only one. The victim's room might tell you more." Stefani's pulse quickened. "His room? You know where it is?" Ellie shrugged, her silver gown catching the light. "I know a lot of things. 3rd floor, east wing. Door's got a lion carved on it. Don't say I never gave you anything." Before Stefani could press her, Ellie slipped into the crowd, her laughter trailing like smoke. Stefani clenched her fists. That woman was playing her own game, and Stefani didn't like being a pawn. But a lead was a lead, and she wasn't waiting for Vincent to start acting like he cared. She glanced at the feather one last time, then headed for the stairs, her heels echoing in the corridor. The palazzo's upper floors were a maze, all creaking wooden shadows that seemed to move when she wasn't looking. The air was colder here, the kind of cold that settled in your bones. She found the east wing, her eyes scanning the doors until she spotted one with a lion's head carved into the wood, its mouth frozen in a snarl. The door was ajar, just enough to make her heart skip. She pushed it open, her breath catching. The room was small, cluttered, like someone had lived here for years instead of a night. A four-poster bed sat against one wall, its velvet curtains half-drawn. A desk was piled with papers, a candle burned down to a stub. The window overlooked the courtyard, the bloodstain below barely visible in the moonlight. Stefani stepped inside, her senses on edge. If this was the victim's room, it was her best shot at figuring out who he was and why he'd ended up dead. She started with the desk, rifling through papers. Invitations, receipts, nothing useful. Then her fingers brushed something hard under a stack of letters. A locket, silver, heavy, with a clasp that clicked when she opened it. Inside was a photo, faded but clear enough. Two men, one older, one younger, standing in front of this very palazzo. The younger one looked familiar, his jawline sharp, his eyes dark. Vincent. No question. The older man had the same eyes, but his face was lined, tired. Father, maybe? She tucked the locket into her clutch, her mind racing. If the victim had this, he wasn't just some random guest. Footsteps echoed in the hall, heavy, deliberate. Stefani froze, her hand on the locket. The door creaked wider, and a figure filled the frame, his white skull mask stark against his dark suit. The same guy from the courtyard, the one who'd been watching her. Her stomach dropped. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice rough, like gravel. This isn't your game. Stefani squared her shoulders, her voice steady. Funny, I was about to say the same to you. Who are you, and why were you following me? He stepped closer, his mask hiding everything but the glint in his eyes. You're poking into things you don't understand, Signorina Germanata. Walk away. Not happening, she said, her heart pounding but her tone defiant. A man's dead, and I'm not big on letting killers waltz around in masks. So, what's your deal? You know something, or you just like creeping people out? He laughed, low and bitter. You're brave. Stupid, but brave. He turned to leave, then paused. Check the lockets back. You might find more than you want. She blinked, and he was gone, his footsteps fading down the hall. Her fingers fumbled with the locket, turning it over. Engraved on the back, in tiny, precise letters, was a name, Moretti. Her breath caught. Vincent's family? The victims? Or both? This was getting messier by the second. She was about to head back downstairs when a voice stopped her, sharp and angry. What the hell are you doing in here? She turned to see Jake Russo, his chrome mask askew, his paint-splattered jacket looking even more out of place up here. His eyes were wild, his hands clenched like he was ready to throw a punch. Jake, right? Stefani said, keeping her voice calm. I'm trying to figure out who got killed. You got a problem with that? Yeah, I do, he snapped, stepping into the room. You're acting like you're Sherlock, but you're just stirring up trouble. You don't know these people. You don't know what they're capable of. And you do? She crossed her arms, holding his gaze. You were screaming at Vincent earlier. Sounded personal. Want to tell me why? Jake's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to the desk. You wouldn't get it. These people, they ruin lives and call it a party. That guy who died. He wasn't innocent. Nobody here is. That's not an answer, Stefani said, her patience thinning. If you know something, spit it out. Or are you just yelling to hear your own voice? He laughed, but it was hollow. You're an over-your-head, superstar. Keep digging, and you'll end up like him. He turned to leave, then stopped, his voice softer. I didn't kill him. But I'm not crying over it either. He walked out, leaving her alone with the locket and 100 questions. She didn't trust Jake, not with that temper, but his pain felt real, raw, like a wound that hadn't healed. She slipped the locket back into her clutch, her mind spinning. Vincent, the victim, the locket, all tied to this palazzo. And then there was the skull-masked creep, dropping hints like he wanted her to keep playing this game. She headed for the door, her heels clicking faster now. She needed to find Ellie, see if she knew about the Moretti connection. But as she reached the staircase, a scream ripped through the palazzo, high and jagged, coming from the ballroom. Her heart lurched. Not again, she thought, her legs moving before her brain caught up. The scream wasn't just fear. It was pain. Someone else was in trouble, and Stefani had a sinking feeling the killer was just getting started. She gripped her clutch, the locket and glove inside like weights pulling her deeper into this nightmare. Whatever was happening in this palazzo, it was bigger than one dead man, and she was running out of time to figure it out. Thank you for listening to these incredible stories. Our team would really appreciate it if you give us a like and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. The scream still echoed in Stefani Germanotta's ears as she shoved through the crowd, her crimson gown catching on someone's jeweled mask. The ballroom was a mess of panic and perfume, guests stumbling over each other, their masks turning them into a faceless mob. The chandelier above swayed slightly, its crystals clinking like a warning. Stefani's heart pounded, her clutch heavy with the locket and bloodied glove. Another scream meant another problem, and she was done playing catch-up with this killer. She needed answers, and she needed them now. The crowd parted near the center of the room, revealing a woman in a sapphire mask crumpled on the floor, clutching her arm. Blood seeped through her fingers, staining her silk gown. A man in a bear mask knelt beside her, muttering something about a doctor. Stefani pushed forward, her eyes scanning the scene. No body this time, just an injury, but the woman's face was pale, her breathing ragged. What happened? Stefani asked, crouching beside her. The woman's mask hid her expression, but her eyes were wide, terrified. Someone grabbed me, she gasped, her voice shaking. In the dark. I felt a blade, it caught me, then they were gone. Stefani's stomach twisted. A blade, just like the one that slit the jester's throat. She glanced around, searching for Vincent, Jake, or that creepy skull-masked guy, but the crowd was too thick, masks blending into a kaleidoscope of suspicion. Her eyes caught a flash of red silk near the edge of the room, the ruby-masked woman in the red gown. She was slipping toward a side door, her movements quick, guilty. Stefani stood, ready to follow, when a hand grabbed her arm. Going somewhere? It was Ellie Kane, her black cat mask tilted, her voice sharp with amusement. You're like a bloodhound, Stefani. Found anything good yet? Stefani yanked her arm free, her patience thin. Yeah, like a locket tying the dead guy to Vincent. And now this. She nodded toward the injured woman. You gonna keep dropping hints, Ellie, or actually help? Ellie's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flickered. You're doing fine without me. But if you want my advice, listen in on Vincent. He's not as composed as he looks. Stefani frowned, following Ellie's gaze. Vincent was near the bar, his gold lion mask glinting as he spoke to a woman in a white rose mask, the same one who'd warned Stefani earlier. Sofia Bellini, she remembered, her cryptic words about blades and smiles still nagging at her. Their conversation looked heated, Vincent's hands gesturing sharply, Sofia's posture stiff. Stefani's gut screamed eavesdrop, but the ruby-masked woman was almost at the door. She had to choose. Cover me, she muttered to Ellie, already moving toward Vincent. Ellie raised an eyebrow but nodded, slipping into the crowd like she was born for this. Stefani wove through the guests, her heels silent on the marble floor, and ducked behind a velvet curtain near the bar. The fabric smelled of mold, but it hid her well enough. Vincent's voice came through, low and tight. You're pushing too far, Sofia, he said, his accent thicker now, laced with anger. This wasn't part of the deal. Deal? Sofia's voice was calm, but it caught like glass. You think you can bury the past, Vincent? The palazzo remembers. And so do I. Stefani's breath caught. The past? Was this about the locket, the Moretti name engraved on it? She leaned closer, her clutch pressing against her side. You owe me, Vincent hissed. After everything, you owe me silence. Sophia laughed, cold and sharp. Silence is a luxury you can't afford. Not tonight. Not with blood on your stones. Stefani's mind raced. Blood on your stones. Did Sophia know who the killer was? Or was she just twisting Vincent's screws? Before she could hear more, a shout broke her focus, loud and raw, from across the room. He did it. I saw him near the body. A man in a fox mask was pointing at Jake Russo, who stood frozen, his chrome mask askew. The crowd turned, whispers rising like a tide. Jake's hands were up, his voice cracking. That's a lie, he shouted. I wasn't anywhere near the courtyard. Stefani stepped out from behind the curtain, her eyes flicking between Jake and the fox-masked accuser. Jake looked cornered, his paint-splattered jacket making him stand out like a sore thumb. But something about the accusation felt off, too convenient. She glanced at Vincent, who was watching the scene with a blank expression, Sophia nowhere in sight. Ellie was closer to Jake, her head tilted like she was sizing him up. Hold up, Stefani called, her voice carrying over the chaos. You saw him? When? And why wait till now to say something? The fox-masked man faltered, his hands twitching. I saw him lurking by the roses. Right after the scream. Lurking? Stefani raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. That's a strong word for a guy standing around. You got anything else, or just a hunch? The crowd murmured, some nodding, others glaring at Jake. He looked at Stefani, his eyes desperate behind his mask. I told you, I didn't do it, he said, quieter now, like he was begging her to believe him. Maybe, she said, her tone neutral. But you're not exactly winning trust points with that temper. She turned to the fox-masked man. If you've got proof, show it. Otherwise, stop throwing gasoline on this fire. The man backed off, muttering, and the crowd's tension eased, but only slightly. Stefani's mind was spinning. Jake's denial felt real, but he was hiding something, she could smell it. And Vincent's argument with Sophia was a neon sign pointing to secrets bigger than one dead guy. She needed to find that ruby-masked woman, check if the feather matched her gown, but the night was unraveling faster than she could keep up. She was about to slip away when a deafening crash shook the room. The chandelier above, massive and glittering, tore free from its chain, plummeting toward the floor. Stefani dove, her gown ripping as she hit the marble. The chandelier smashed inches from her, crystals exploding like shrapnel. Screams erupted, guests scattering, masks cracking underfoot. Stefani's heart pounded, her breath ragged. She looked up, expecting chaos, but her eyes caught something else, a shadow moving on the balcony above, too quick to identify. Stefani. Ellie was at her side, pulling her up. You okay? Barely, Stefani gasped, her hands shaking. That wasn't an accident. No kidding, Ellie said, her voice grim. Someone's sending a message. And I'm guessing it's for you. Stefani's eyes darted to the balcony, but the shadow was gone. Her clutch was still clutched tight, the locket and glove inside like anchors tying her to this mess. Vincent was shouting for calm, his voice strained, while Jake stood frozen, staring at the wreckage like it was a ghost. Sophia was nowhere, and the ruby-masked woman had vanished again. The air felt heavier now, the palazzo's walls closing in. Someone wanted her scared, maybe dead, and they weren't subtle about it. She brushed off her gown, her jaw set. Message received, she muttered. But they're gonna have to try harder than that. The killer was close, watching, and Stefani was done being a step behind. She needed to find Sophia, figure out what Vincent owed her, and why this palazzo was a magnet for blood. The night wasn't over, and neither was she. The ballroom was a wreck, shards of chandelier crystal glittering like broken promises on the marble floor. Stefani Germanata stood, brushing dust from her torn crimson gown, her heart still racing from the near miss. The crowd buzzed with panic, masks askew, voices sharp with accusations. Vincent was at the center, his gold lion mask gleaming as he barked orders to his staff, but his calm was cracking, his hands trembling just enough to notice. Stefani's clutch weighed heavy, the locket and bloodied glove inside burning a hole in her mind. That chandelier wasn't an accident, and the shadow on the balcony meant someone was watching, waiting. She wasn't just hunting a killer now. She was prey. Ellie Kane stood beside her, her black cat mask tilted, her silver gown untouched by the chaos. "You've got a knack for trouble, Stefani," she said, her voice low, almost amused. "Keep this up, and you'll need more than luck to walk out of here." "Luck's overrated," Stefani muttered, her eyes scanning the room. Jake Russo was gone, vanished in the chaos, and Sofia Bellini, with her cryptic warnings, was nowhere. The ruby-masked woman in the red gown hadn't resurfaced either. Too many players, too many shadows. "You said you're on my side, Ellie. Prove it." "Where's Sofia?" Ellie's lips curved, but her eyes were guarded. "Sofia's a ghost when she wants to be. Try the library, West Wing. She likes old books and older secrets. But watch your back. This place is crawling with knives." Stefani nodded, her jaw tight. "Stay here. Keep an eye on Vincent. He's hiding something, and I'm done with his smooth-talking crap." Ellie saluted, her grin sharp. "Bossy. I like it." She melted into the crowd, leaving Stefani alone with her racing thoughts. The library. It was a start, and she needed to move before the killer did. She slipped out of the ballroom, her heels clicking down a dim corridor lined with cracked mirrors. The palazzo felt alive, its walls whispering with every creak, every draft. Her reflection flickered in the mirrors, a masked stranger in red, and for a second, she wondered who she was in this game. The West Wing was quieter, the air thick with the smell of leather and mildew. The library door was heavy oak, carved with vines that looked like they were choking each other. Stefani pushed it open, the hinges groaning. Inside, the room was a cave of books, shelves towering to the ceiling, their spines faded and peeling. A single chandelier hung above, its candles casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. Sofia stood near a table, her white rose mask stark against her silver hair, a leather-bound book open in her hands. "You're persistent," Sofia said without looking up, her voice cool, accented. "That's dangerous in a place like this." Stefani stepped closer, her tone sharp. "I'm not here for riddles, Sofia. A chandelier almost crushed me, and I heard you and Vincent arguing about some debt. Start talking. What's going on in this palazzo?" Sofia closed the book, her eyes meeting Stefani's through her mask. "You think you can unravel this night? It's older than you, deeper than blood. Vincent's family built this place on lies. And lies have a way of bleeding out. Like the guy in the courtyard?" Stefani pulled the locket from her clutch, holding it up. "This has Vincent's face in it. And the name Moretti on the back. Was the dead guy family? Or just someone who knew too much?" Sofia's fingers twitched, but her face stayed unreadable. "You're clever. But clever gets you killed here. That locket is a key, but not to the truth you want. Put it away before someone sees." Stefani's patience snapped. "Someone already tried to drop a chandelier on me, so I'm past playing safe. You know something, Sofia. Spill it, or I'm dragging Vincent into this right now." Sofia laughed, soft and bitter. "Vincent is a shadow of his father. He owes debts he can't pay, to people who don't forgive. This ball was his gamble, a way to settle scores. But someone brought a blade instead of a deal." Stefani's mind raced. Debts, scores, a killer with a plan. She was about to press Sofia harder when a noise stopped her, a faint scrape from the shadows. She turned, her heart lurching. The shelves loomed like walls, hiding whatever was out there. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steady but her pulse hammering. No answer, just another scrape, closer now. Sofia's eyes narrowed, and she stepped back, her gown rustling. "You've been followed," she whispered. "Go. Now." Not without answers, Stefani hissed, but the air felt wrong, heavy. She shoved the locket back into her clutch and moved toward the door, her senses screaming. That's when she saw it, a figure in the shadows, masked, motionless, their eyes glinting like a cat's. The skull mask. Him again. "You don't quit, do you?" Stefani said, her voice loud to mask her fear. "What's your deal? You the killer, or just a creep with a fetish for staring?" The figure didn't move, but their voice was low, rough. "You're digging in the wrong grave, Signorina. The locket's a distraction. Look closer at the walls." Before she could respond, he vanished, slipping between the shelves like smoke. Stefani cursed, her hands shaking. The walls? What kind of cryptic nonsense was that? She turned to Sophia, but the older woman was already moving, pulling a book from the shelf. The shelf clicked, then swung open, revealing a narrow passage, its walls damp and black. "Follow if you want truth," Sophia said, her voice urgent. "But it comes at a price." Stefani hesitated, her instincts screaming trap. But the killer was out there, and Sophia was the closest thing to a lead. She stepped into the passage, the air cold and sour, the door closing behind her with a thud. The passage was tight, the walls rough under her fingers. Sophia moved fast, her white gown a faint glow ahead. They emerged into a small room, its walls covered in faded letters and photos, a shrine to the Palazzo's past. "Vincent's family," Sophia said, pointing to a photo of a man who looked like the older figure in the locket. "They stole this place, built it on blood. These letters tell the story, but they're cursed. Everyone who reads them pays." Stefani scanned the letters, her eyes catching words like betrayal, fortune, murder. One name stood out, Moretti, scrawled in angry ink. Her clutch felt heavier, the locket inside a burning question. "Cursed," she said, her tone dry. "You're gonna have to do better than ghost stories." Sophia's eyes darkened. "The curse is real. It's why he died. It's why you're in danger." Before Stefani could argue, a crash echoed from the passage, loud and close. Footsteps followed, heavy, deliberate. Someone had found them. Stefani's heart leapt, her eyes darting to Sophia, who looked pale, her mask slipping to reveal fear. "They know you're here," Sophia whispered. "Run." Stefani didn't need telling twice. She bolted for the passage, her gown catching on the rough walls, the footsteps gaining. The killer, the skull-masked creep, or someone new, she didn't know, but they were close, and she was trapped in a maze with secrets that could get her killed. The locket, the letters, Sophia's warnings, all of it pointed to Vincent, but the truth was still out of reach, and the night was far from over. Stefani Germanata's heels scraped the damp stone as she stumbled out of the secret passage, her breath ragged. The air in the Palazzo's west wing was thick, sour with mold and something sharper, like fear turned rancid. Her crimson gown was torn at the hem, her clutch clutched tight, the locket and bloodied glove inside heavy as guilt. Sophia Bellini's warning echoed in her head, those footsteps in the passage too close, too deliberate. Whoever was chasing her hadn't followed her out, but that didn't mean they were gone. The killer was here, somewhere, and Stefani was running out of places to hide. She leaned against a cracked wall, catching her breath, her eyes darting down the dim corridor. The letters Sophia showed her, all that talk of curses and stolen fortunes, made her skin crawl. Moretti, Vincent's family, tied to blood and betrayal. The locket in her clutch was proof, but proof of what? She needed to find Ellie Kane, see if her journalist nose could sniff out what Sophia wasn't saying. But the Palazzo felt like a maze now, every shadow a threat, every creak a blade. A faint murmur pulled her toward the ballroom, the music starting up again, thin and forced, like a band playing on a sinking ship. She slipped back into the crowd, her mask itching, her heart still pounding. The guests were trying to pretend nothing was wrong, their laughter brittle, their masks hiding eyes that darted too fast. Vincent stood near the bar, his gold lion mask glinting as he raised a glass, his voice loud, too cheerful. To resilience, he said, like a man convincing himself. We carry on, for the night is young. Stefani's lip curled. Young? With a body in the courtyard and a chandelier in pieces? She scanned the room for Ellie, spotting her silver gown near a pillar, her black cat mask tilted as she whispered to a man in a hawk mask. Before Stefani could move, a gasp rippled through the crowd, sharp and sudden. A woman in a peacock mask staggered forward, her glass slipping from her hand, shattering on the marble. She clutched her throat, her eyes wide behind her mask, her body swaying. Help, she choked, her voice a rasp. Poison. The room froze, then erupted. Guests backed away, their masks bobbing like startled birds. Stefani pushed through, her pulse spiking. The woman collapsed, her peacock feathers crumpling, her body twitching once, then still. Stefani knelt beside her, her hands hovering, useless. The woman's lips were blue, her eyes glassy, fixed on nothing. Dead. Just like that. Move back. Vincent shouted, his voice cracking. He shoved through the crowd, his mask askew, his face pale. Give her space. Space? Stefani snapped, standing, her voice cutting through the chaos. She's gone, Vincent. Poisoned, right under your nose. You still gonna tell me this is just a party? Vincent's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. The crowd was a mess, some crying, others shouting, their masks making it impossible to tell who was who. Stefani's eyes flicked to Ellie, who was watching from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. Jake Russo was there too, his crow mask pushed up, his face slick with sweat. He looked sick, like he'd seen a ghost, not a body. Stefani's mind raced. Poison was different, deliberate, not a slashed throat in a fit of rage. The killer was escalating, playing with them. She glanced at the shattered glass, its contents pooling on the floor, a faint greenish tint catching the light. Her clutch felt heavier, the locket inside screaming Vincent's name. Was this tied to the Moretti curse Sophia mentioned? Or something closer, personal? Lock the doors, Vincent said, his voice hard now, all charm gone. Nobody leaves. Not until we figure this out. Figure it out? A man in a bear mask shouted. You're trapping us with a killer. The crowd surged, voices rising, masks slipping. Stefani's eyes caught a flash of red silk near the edge of the room, the ruby-masked woman in the red gown. She was slipping toward a side door, her movements quick, panicked. Stefani started after her, but Ellie grabbed her arm, her grip tight. Don't, Ellie said, her voice low. You chase her now, you'll miss what's happening here. Vincent's losing control, and that's when people slip. Stefani yanked her arm free, her patience gone. I'm done with your games, Ellie. That woman's connected, I know it. The feather, the gown, it's too much to ignore. Ellie's eyes narrowed behind her mask. Maybe. But my notebook's gone. Someone took it, and it had everything I've got on Vincent. You want answers? Stick with me. Stefani froze. Ellie's notebook, stolen? That was no coincidence. Who knew you had it? She asked, her voice sharp. Ellie shrugged, but her jaw was tight. Anyone watching close enough. I wasn't exactly subtle. Point is, someone's scared of what I know. And now they're scared of you. Stefani's stomach twisted. The locket, the glove, the feather, now a stolen notebook. The killer wasn't just killing, they were cleaning up, tying loose ends. She glanced at Vincent, who was arguing with a group of guests, his gesture sharp. Jake was still by the wall, his eyes locked on the dead woman, his hands shaking. Sophia was nowhere, probably hiding in another secret room. And the ruby-masked woman was gone, the side door swinging shut behind her. Fine, Stefani said, her voice low. But you're telling me everything, Ellie. No more hints. What's in that notebook, and why is Vincent at the center of this? Ellie hesitated, then nodded. Not here. Too many years. Meet me in the East Wing, near the lion door. 10 minutes. Stefani didn't trust her, not fully, but Ellie was her best shot at cracking this. "Don't stand me up," she said, her tone dry. "I'm not in the mood for ghosting." Ellie's laugh was sharp, but she was already moving, her silver gown blending into the crowd. Stefani turned back to the dead woman, her peacock mask cracked where she'd fallen. The poison, the timing, it felt like a message, but for who? Her eyes caught on a ring on the woman's finger, gold, with a crest like the one on the jester's hand. Her heart skipped. The same crest. These deaths were connected, and the locket in her clutch was the key. She was about to head for the east wing when a hand brushed her shoulder, light but deliberate. She spun, expecting Ellie or Jake, but it was the skull-masked man, his white mask stark in the dim light. His eyes glinted, unreadable, and his voice was a low growl. "You're still playing their game," he said. "The poison's just the start. Check her mask. You'll see." Before Stefani could snap back, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Her hands shook as she knelt beside the body, ignoring the stares. She lifted the peacock mask, careful not to touch the skin. Tucked inside, barely visible, was a scrap of paper, folded tight. She unfolded it, her breath catching. Scrawled in red ink were two words, Moretti's End. Her clutch felt like a bomb now, the locket inside a ticking fuse. Vincent, the crest, the curse, it was all crashing together, and the killer was steps ahead, taunting her. The east wing was her next move, but the palazzo's walls seemed to tighten, the masks around her closing in. Another death, another clue, and Stefani was deeper in this nightmare than ever, with a killer who knew exactly what she was chasing. Stefani Germanata's pulse thrummed like a bass line as she slipped through the palazzo's dim corridors, her crimson gown trailing like a wound against the cold stone. The note in her clutch, Moretti's End scrawled in red, burned in her mind, right alongside the locket, the bloodied glove, and the red feather. Two deaths now, a slashed throat and a poisoned glass, both marked by that gold crest. The killer was weaving a web, and she was caught in it, chasing shadows while the palazzo's secrets tightened around her. Ellie Kane's promise of answers in the east wing was her only lead, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not after that chandelier, not with a skull-masked creep dropping riddles like breadcrumbs. The east wing was quieter, the air heavy with dust and the faint hum of the ballroom far behind. The lion-carved door loomed ahead, its snarl mocking her. Stefani's heels clicked too loud, each step a dare to whatever was lurking. Ellie wasn't here yet, and the silence felt wrong, like the calm before a scream. She leaned against the wall, her clutch pressed tight, and replayed Sofia Bellini's words about Vincent's debts and a curse that bled. The note's words, Moretti's End, pointed straight at Vincent, but the killer's game felt bigger, personal. She needed Ellie's notebook, or at least what was in it, to make sense of this. A soft rustle broke her thoughts, and she spun, her heart lurching. Sofia stood at the corridor's end, her white rose mask stark against her silver hair, her gown shimmering like a ghost's. Her eyes locked on Stefani, unblinking, and for a second, the air felt colder. "You don't stop, do you?" Sofia said, her voice low, accented, slicing through the silence. "Even when death follows you." Stefani squared her shoulders, her tone sharp. "Death's following everyone tonight, Sofia. You want to help, start with the truth. What's Moretti's End? And why's Vincent so scared of you?" Sofia's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "You're bold, Signorina Germanata. But boldness breaks against these walls. Vincent's father betrayed someone close, long ago. That betrayal birthed a debt, one Vincent can't escape. The deaths tonight, their payment. Payment for what?" Stefani stepped closer, her patience fraying. "And who's collecting? You know the killer, don't you?" Sofia's eyes darkened, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The killer is a shadow of that betrayal. They wear a mask, like us all, but their blade is honest. I know only what the palazzo tells me, and it speaks of blood." Stefani's stomach twisted. More riddles, more ghosts. The palazzo's not talking, Sofia. You are. If you're not the killer, then who? Give me a name. Sophia shook her head, her mask catching the dim light. Names are meaningless here. Look to the crest, the one you've seen. It binds the dead to the living. But be careful, Stefani. You're not as invisible as you think. Before Stefani could snap back, Sophia turned, her gown vanishing around the corner. Stefani cursed under her breath, her hands shaking. The crest, again. The jester, the peacock woman, both wearing it. She pulled the locket from her clutch, its gold crest glinting. Vincent's face stared back from the photo inside, young and smug. Sophia was pointing her at him, but it felt too easy, like a trap. Footsteps echoed, lighter this time, and Stefani shoved the locket away, her senses sharp. Ellie Kane appeared, her silver gown catching the sconce light, her black cat mask tilted like she was laughing at the world. You look like you've seen a ghost, Ellie said, her voice smoky. Sophia get under your skin? More like she's dancing on my nerves, Stefani said, her tone dry. Where's your notebook, Ellie? And don't give me any cryptic crap. I'm done with games. Ellie leaned against the lion door, her smile sharp. Straight to the point. I like that. The notebook had dirt on Vincent, financial stuff, shady deals tied to this palazzo. Someone snatched it from my bag during the chandelier chaos. But I've got a memory like a steel trap. Ask away. Stefani's eyes narrowed. Moriarty's end. Mean anything to you? Ellie's smile faltered, just for a second. Heard it whispered once, years ago. Old gossip about Vincent's dad, some scandal that tanked the family. Nobody talks about it now. Why? Stefani pulled out the note, holding it up. Found this in the peacock woman's mask. Killer's calling card, maybe. Sophia says it's about a betrayal. You know anything else? Ellie's eyes flicked to the note, her jaw tightening. Sophia's got a nose for drama. But yeah, Vincent's dad was a piece of work. Stole land, cheated partners, left bodies in his wake. Metaphorically, I thought. Maybe not. Stefani's mind raced. Bodies. The locket, the crest, the note. The dead guy and the woman, they both had that crest. Vincent's tied to it. Is he the target, or the puppet? Ellie shrugged, but her eyes were sharp. Could be both. Vincent's drowning in debt. This ball was his big play to charm investors, but someone's turning it into a slaughter. You're holding something, aren't you? Spill. Stefani hesitated, then showed the locket, keeping the glove hidden. Found this in the jester's room. Vincent's in the photo, and the crest's on it. Sophia says it's a key. Ellie whistled low. That's no trinket. If Vincent knows you've got it, you're a target. Keep it close, and don't trust anyone. Not even me. Stefani smirked, but it was forced. Way ahead of you. She was about to ask more when a shout echoed from the ballroom, raw and panicked. He's gone. He tried to run. They exchanged a look and bolted toward the sound, Stefani's heels skidding on the marble. The ballroom was chaos again, guests crowding near the courtyard doors. A man in a fox mask was pointing, his voice shrill. He tried to break the lock. I saw him. Stefani pushed through, her heart sinking. Jake Russo stood by the doors, his crow mask off, his face pale and slick with sweat. His hands were raised, a screwdriver on the ground beside him. I wasn't running, he said, his voice shaking. I just wanted out. Out, the fox-masked man sneered. With a killer loose? You're guilty, and you know it. The crowd murmured, their masks turning on Jake like wolves. Stefani stepped forward, her voice loud. Back off. You've got no proof, and jumping him won't solve anything. Jake's eyes met hers, raw, desperate. I didn't kill anyone, he said, quieter now. I just can't stay here. This place, it's poison. She wanted to believe him, but his shaking hands and that screwdriver weren't helping his case. Then why run, she asked, her tone softer. Talk to me, Jake. What's got you so scared? He opened his mouth, then froze as Vincent appeared, his gold mask gleaming, his voice cold. Enough. Jake, you're confined to a room until dawn. No more trouble. Jake laughed, bitter. Trouble? You're the one who invited it, Vincent. This is on you. The crowd gasped, but Stefani's eyes stayed on Jake. His pain was real, but so was his fear, and she didn't know which was driving him. Vincent's staff grabbed Jake, pulling him away, and Stefani felt a pang. Guilty or not, he was a piece of this puzzle, and she needed him free to figure out where he fit. Ellie leaned in, her voice a whisper. He's not the killer. Too messy. But he knows something. Keep digging, Stefani. And watch for the ruby mask. She's still out there. Stefani nodded, her clutch heavy with clues and questions. The note, the locket, Sophia's warnings, Jake's fear, it was all tied to Vincent and that crest. But the killer was still moving, and the palazzo's shadows were closing in. She had to find the ruby-masked woman, and fast, before another body dropped and the truth slipped further away. Stefani Germanata's heart pounded as she slipped away from the ballroom, the chaos of Jake Russo's outburst still ringing in her ears. Her crimson gown, now frayed at the edges, clung to her like a second skin, her clutch a lifeline with the locket, bloodied glove, and that chilling note, Moretti's end, tucked inside. The palazzo's corridors felt tighter now, the air thick with dust and dread, every shadow a potential blade. Jake was locked away, Vincent was unraveling, and the ruby-masked woman was still a ghost. Ellie Kane's promise of answers about Vincent's shady deals was a thin thread, but Stefani needed more than whispers. She needed the truth, and the palazzo itself was starting to feel like the key. Ellie had mentioned the east wing again, near the lion-carved door, but Stefani's gut pulled her elsewhere. Sophia Bellini's talk of curses and betrayals, tied to Vincent's family, kept circling back to the hidden room with those letters. The palazzo's past was bleeding into the present, and Stefani wasn't waiting for another body to prove it. She headed for the west wing, her heels muffled on the worn rugs, her eyes scanning for the secret passage Sophia had shown her. The killer was close, and she was done being a step behind. The library loomed ahead, its oak door half open, the vine carvings looking more like claws in the dim light. Stefani slipped inside, the smell of old leather and wax hitting her like a memory. The shelves towered, their shadows shifting under the flickering chandelier. She moved to the shelf Sophia had touched, her fingers brushing the spine of a worn book. A click, and the shelf swung open, revealing the narrow passage, its damp walls glistening like a throat. Her pulse spiked, but she stepped in, the door closing with a soft thud behind her. The passage was colder now, the air sharp with mildew. Her gown brushed the walls, snagging on rough stone. The hidden room was just as she'd left it, a claustrophobic vault of faded photos and letters, the Moretti name scrawled like a curse. Stefani's eyes flicked to the photo of Vincent's father, his face stern, his eyes too much like Vincent's. She grabbed a stack of letters, her hands steady despite the knot in her stomach. The ink was faded, but the words were clear, angry. Land stolen, deals broken, a partner betrayed. One letter mentioned a name, Bellini, crossed out in red. Sophia's family? Her breath caught. Was that the betrayal Sophia meant? She was halfway through another letter when a creak stopped her, sharp and close. The passage. Someone was coming. She shoved the letters into her clutch, her heart hammering, and ducked behind a crate, the shadows barely hiding her. Footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, then stopped. A figure stepped into the room, their mask a stark white skull, the same creep who'd been stalking her. His dark suit blended with the dark, but his eyes glinted, scanning the room like a predator. "You can't hide forever, Signorina," he said, his voice rough, low. "You're chasing ghosts, but they'll bury you." Stefani's jaw tightened, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "I'm not the one hiding, Skullface. Why don't you take off that mask and talk like a person?" He laughed, a sound like gravel. "Masks are the only truth here. You've got the locket, the letters. You think you're close, but you're blind. The real secret's in the walls, not the paper. There you go with the walls again, she snapped, stepping out, her hands on her hips. Either say something real or get out of my way. I'm not in the mood for riddles. He tilted his head, like he was sizing her up. Bold. But boldness gets you dead. Check the east wing, behind the tapestry. You'll see. He turned, vanishing into the passage before she could move. Stefani cursed, her hands shaking. The east wing, again. Was he leading her to Ellie, or a trap? She grabbed one more letter, stuffing it into her clutch, and hurried out, the passage feeling tighter, the walls closing in. The library was empty when she emerged, but the air felt wrong, heavy. She headed for the east wing, her mind spinning. The letters tied Vincent's father to a betrayal, maybe Sophia's family, but the skull-masked man's hints pointed elsewhere. In that note, Moretti's end, screamed revenge. The east wing was quieter, the lion-carved door ahead. No Ellie, but a tapestry hung nearby, its faded threads showing a lion devouring a snake. Stefani's gut twisted. The skullman's words echoed, behind the tapestry. She pulled it aside, revealing a wooden panel, loose at the edges. Her fingers pried it open, the wood groaning. Inside was a small alcove, dust-choked, holding a locked chest, its iron bands rusted but solid. Her heart leapt. This was no coincidence. She knelt, examining the lock, her clutch heavy with clues. The chest was old, its lid carved with the Moretti crest, the same as the locket. She needed a key, or a crowbar, but before she could think, a voice cut through the silence, sharp and angry. What are you doing? Ellie Kane stood behind her, her black cat mask pushed up, her blonde hair spilling loose. Her eyes were narrow, her silver gown catching the dim light. You're gonna get us both killed, poking around like this. Stefani stood, her tone dry. Nice of you to show, Ellie. I'm finding answers, which is more than you've given me. What's in this chest? Ellie's jaw tightened, her voice low. I don't know, but you're not the only one looking. I saw Jake sneaking around here earlier, before Vincent locked him up. And someone else, too. Red gown, ruby mask. Stefani's pulse spiked. You saw her? Where? Gone now, Ellie said, her eyes flicking to the chest. But she's circling, like a shark. You need to be careful, Stefani. That chest is trouble, and you're already a target. Target? Stefani laughed, bitter. I'm neck deep, Ellie. The locket, the letters, that note, it's all Moretti. Vincent's dad screwed someone, maybe Sophia's family, and now it's open season. You know more than you're saying. Spill. Ellie hesitated, then sighed. Fine. My notebook had proof Vincent's been laundering money through this palazzo, deals tied to his dad's old partners. One name kept popping up, Bellini. I think Sophia's playing her own game, settling scores. But I don't have proof anymore. Someone's cleaning house. Stefani's mind raced. Bellini, again. Sophia wasn't just a cryptic old lady, she was a player. But before she could press Ellie, a scream tore through the palazzo, raw and desperate, from the courtyard. Stefani's heart lurched. Not another one, she thought, her legs moving before her brain caught up. She ran, Ellie behind her, the corridors blurring past. The courtyard was lit by moonlight, the bloodstain from the jester still dark on the cobblestones. A man in a hawk mask lay sprawled, his throat cut, his mask cracked. Blood pooled around him, a gold crest ring glinting on his finger. Stefani's stomach churned. 3 dead, all with that crest. The killer was picking them off, one by one, in the chest, the letters, the locket, they were all pieces of a puzzle she couldn't solve yet. Ellie grabbed her arm, her voice urgent. We need to move. Now. Whoever did this is still here. Stefani nodded, her eyes scanning the shadows. The ruby-masked woman, Sophia, the skullman, Vincent, Jake, they were all circling, and the palazzo's past was a noose tightening around her. The chest was her next move, but the killer was watching, and the night was running out of time. Stefani Germanata's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the hawk-masked man's body, his blood pooling like ink on the courtyard cobblestones. The gold crest ring on his finger glinted under the moonlight, a cruel echo of the jester and peacock woman's deaths. 3 bodies, all tied to the Moretti name, all marked by that crest. Her clutch was a lead weight, stuffed with the locket, bloodied glove, red feather, and stolen letters, each a piece of a puzzle that was starting to feel like a noose. The palazzo's walls seemed to pulse, the air thick with the stench of blood and secrets. Ellie Kane stood beside her, her silver gown pristine, her black cat mask pushed up to reveal eyes sharp with calculation. The killer was close, and Stefani was tired of running in circles. "We can't stay here," Ellie whispered, her voice tight. "Whoever did this is watching." Stefani's jaw clenched, her eyes scanning the shadows. The ruby-masked woman, Sofia Bellini, the skull-masked creep, Vincent Moretti, even Jake Russo, locked away but not forgotten, they were all threads in this twisted game. The chest in the east wing alcove was her next move, but the killer's taunts, Moretti's end scrawled in red, felt personal now, like a dare. She wasn't just chasing answers. She was being hunted. "Back to the chest," Stefani said, her voice low, resolute. "Whatever's in it, it's what the killer's afraid of." Ellie nodded, but her eyes flicked to the crowd gathering at the courtyard's edge, their masks a wall of suspicion. "Careful, Stefani. You're not invisible anymore." They slipped back into the palazzo, the corridors dim and suffocating, the hum of the ballroom distant, like a fading pulse. The east wing was quiet, the lion-carved door looming like a sentinel. Stefani pulled the tapestry aside, the lion and snake design glaring back, and pried open the wooden panel. The chest sat in the alcove, its iron bands rusted, the Moretti crest carved deep. She knelt, her fingers tracing the lock, her clutch heavy with clues but no key. "Any bright ideas?" she asked Ellie, her tone dry. "Or are we smashing this thing open?" Ellie crouched beside her, her fingers brushing the crest. "This isn't just a lock. It's old, custom. Vincent might have the key, or Sophia. They're both tied to this place's bones." Stefani's mind flashed to Sophia's cryptic warnings, Vincent's argument about debts. "Sophia's dodging me, and Vincent's not exactly handing out favors. We need leverage." Before Ellie could reply, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "You're meddling in things you don't understand." A woman in a sapphire mask stood at the corridor's end, her gown bloodstained from the earlier attack, her posture rigid with anger. "Leave that chest alone, or you'll regret it." Stefani stood, her heart racing but her voice steady. "Regret's my middle name, lady. Who are you, and why's this chest got you so jumpy?" The woman's eyes narrowed behind her mask. "You're stirring up trouble, Germanata. This palazzo's cursed, and you're waking things better left dead." "Cursed?" Stefani laughed, sharp and bitter. "I've got 3 bodies and a note saying Moretti's end. That's not a curse, that's a hit list. You know something, spill it." The woman stepped closer, her voice low, venomous. "You think you're clever, but you're a spark in a powder keg. Walk away, or you're next." Ellie grabbed Stefani's arm, her voice urgent. "She's not worth it. Let's go." Stefani yanked free, her patience gone. "No. I'm done with threats. You want me to stop? Give me a reason, or get out of my way." The woman hesitated, then turned, her gown rustling as she vanished down the corridor. Stefani's hands shook, adrenaline burning through her. "She knows too much," she muttered. "And she's scared." Ellie's eyes were grim. "Scared people are dangerous. We need that chest open, now." Stefani nodded, her mind racing. The sapphire-masked woman's warning echoed Sophia's, but it felt personal, like she was protecting something, or someone. She knelt again, examining the lock, when a faint click came from the chest, as if something inside had shifted. Her heart skipped. She grabbed a hairpin from her updo, bending it into a makeshift pick, and worked the lock, her fingers steady despite the sweat on her palms. Ellie watched, silent, the air thick with tension. The lock gave with a soft snap, and Stefani lifted the lid, dust swirling like ghosts. Inside was a bundle of documents, yellowed and brittle, tied with a red ribbon. She untied it, her eyes scanning the top page. Deeds, contracts, all stamped with the Moretti crest, naming Vincent's father as heir to a fortune stolen from a family called Bellini. Sophia's family. Her breath caught. This was the betrayal, the root of the curse. "There's more," Ellie said, pulling out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a key, iron, heavy, with the same crest. This opens something else. Another lock, another secret. Stefani's mind spun. The documents were dynamite, proof Vincent's family built their empire on theft. But the key, that was a new door, and she didn't know where it led. "We need to find what this opens," she said, tucking the documents and key into her clutch. "But Vincent's gonna know we've got this." Before Ellie could reply, a scream tore through the palazzo, high and jagged, from the ballroom. Stefani's heart lurched. Not again, she thought, her legs moving before her brain caught up. She shoved the tapestry back, sealing the alcove, and ran, Ellie behind her, the corridors blurring past. The ballroom was a chaos of masks and shouts, guests crowding near the bar. A man in a bear mask was shouting, pointing at a spilled glass, its contents green and foaming. "She was poisoned," he yelled, his voice cracking. "Just like the other one." Stefani pushed through, her stomach churning. A woman in a swan mask lay slumped, her eyes glassy, her lips blue. Another crest ring glinted on her finger. For dead, all Moretti linked, all taunting her with that note's promise, Moretti's end. Vincent stood frozen, his gold mask slipping, his face pale as death. "This is on you, Vincent," Stefani said, her voice loud, cutting through the panic. "Your family's past is killing people. Start talking, or I will." Vincent's eyes met hers, raw, desperate. "You don't know what you're doing," he said, his voice low. "You're digging your own grave." "Maybe," she shot back, her clutch heavy with proof. "But I'm not the one burying bodies." A shadow moved at the room's edge, the ruby-masked woman in the red gown, her eyes glinting behind her mask. She slipped toward a side door, and Stefani's heart leapt. She started after her, but a cold weight settled in her chest. Back in her room, on her bed, she'd find something new, a knife, its blade etched with the Moretti crest, left like a gift. The killer was close, and they weren't just killing. They were playing with her, and the game was far from over. Stefani Germanotta's heart hammered as she pushed through the ballroom's chaos, her eyes locked on the ruby-masked woman slipping through a side door. The air was thick with panic, the swan-masked woman's poisoned body still sprawled by the bar, her crest ring a grim reminder of the killer's game. For dead, all tied to the Moretti name, and Stefani's clutch was bursting with clues, the locket, bloodied glove, red feather, stolen letters, and now documents and a key from the chest. The note, Moretti's end, was a taunt, and the knife she'd find in her room, etched with the Moretti crest, was a warning. The palazzo's walls seemed to breathe, heavy with secrets, and Stefani was done chasing shadows. She needed the ruby-masked woman, and she needed her now. Ellie Kane grabbed her arm, her silver gown shimmering, her black cat mask pushed up to reveal a tense jaw. "Stefani, slow down," she hissed. "You chase her alone, you're walking into a trap." Stefani yanked free, her voice sharp. "Trap or not, she's got answers, Ellie. That feather, her gown, she's connected. Stay here, keep Vincent talking. He's cracking, I can feel it." Ellie's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. "Fine. But if you're not back in 10, I'm coming after you." "And Stefani? That knife you're expecting? It's not a gift. It's a promise." Stefani's stomach twisted, but she didn't reply, her heels already clicking toward the side door. The corridor beyond was dim, lined with faded tapestries that smelled of mildew. The ruby-masked woman's red gown flashed at the far end, disappearing around a corner. Stefani followed, her pulse loud in her ears, the weight of her clutch like a stone. The palazzo felt alive, its creaks and whispers urging her on, or warning her back. She didn't know which. The corridor opened into a small gallery, its walls hung with portraits of stern-faced Morettas, their eyes following her. The ruby-masked woman stood by a window, her back to Stefani, her gown pooling like blood on the floor. She didn't turn, but her voice was low, smooth, like she'd been expecting this. "You're persistent," she said, her accent faint, unplaceable. "That's dangerous in a house like this." Stefani stepped closer, her tone sharp. "Persistent's my middle name. Who are you, and why's your feather showing up at murder scenes?" The woman laughed, soft and cold. "Feathers fall, Signorina Germanata. They don't always mean what you think. You're looking for a killer, but you're chasing the wrong mask." "Then take yours off," Stefani snapped, her patience gone. "Or give me something real. I've got 4 bodies and a note saying Moretti's end. You're part of this, I know it." The woman turned, her ruby mask glinting, her eyes unreadable. "You're bold, but you're blind. The Morettas built this place on theft and blood. Their end is justice, not murder. Look to Vincent, not me." Stefani's hand tightened on her clutch, the documents inside burning. "Vincent's drowning in his dad's sins, I get it. But you're dodging. That feather was bloody, and you're running. Spill, or I'm dragging you to Vincent myself." The woman's lips curved, almost a smile. "You're not ready for the truth, superstar. But you're close. Check your room. You'll find what you need." She stepped back, and before Stefani could move, she slipped through a hidden panel in the wall, the wood clicking shut. Stefani cursed, slamming her fist against the panel, but it didn't budge. Her room. The knife. She'd known it was coming, but the ruby-masked woman's words made it real, a blade waiting like a lover. She turned, heading for her room, her mind spinning. The documents proved Vincent's family stole from Sophia's, the key opened something else, and the killer was circling, leaving bodies in taunts. She was close, but close to what? Her room was on the 2nd floor, a small suite Vincent had assigned her. The door was ajar, the air inside cold, wrong. She stepped in, her eyes locking on the bed. There it was, a knife, its blade gleaming, the Moretti crest etched deep. Her heart lurched. She reached for it, careful, and noticed a scrap of paper tucked beneath. Red ink, same as the note. One word, closer. "Son of a bitch," she muttered, her hands shaking. The killer was toying with her, leaving gifts like a cat with a mouse. She tucked the knife and note into her clutch, her skin crawling. She was about to head back to Ellie when a shout echoed from below, loud, panicked. "He's gone!" She ran, her gown snagging on the doorframe, and reached the ballroom in time to see Vincent at the center, his gold mask off, his face pale, eyes wild. "Jake's escaped," he said, his voice raw. "He broke the lock, attacked a guard." Stefani's stomach dropped. "Jake, free? Guilty or not, he was a loose cannon." She scanned the crowd, spotting Ellie near the bar, her eyes locked on Vincent. Stefani pushed through, her voice low. "Ellie, tell me you got something on Vincent." Ellie nodded, her voice tight. "He's broke, Stefani. The palazzo's a front, his deals are crumbling. This ball was his last shot to save it, but someone's burning it down. Literally." Stefani frowned, then froze as a creak sounded above, followed by a groan. The balcony railing, old and rotting, was giving way, guests standing on it unaware. She shouted, "Move," but it was too late. The wood snapped, and the balcony collapsed, screams filling the air. Stefani dove, her gown ripping, and felt a strong hand pull her clear. Jake Russo, his crow mask gone, his face bruised, eyes fierce. "Stay down," he said, his voice rough. "You're not the only one they want dead." Dust settled, guests coughing, some injured but alive. Stefani's heart raced, her eyes on Jake. "You're supposed to be locked up," she said, her tone sharp. "Why save me?" Jake's jaw tightened, his voice low. I'm not the killer, Stefani. But I know who might be. Vincent's dad ruined my family, took everything. I came here to confront him, but someone beat me to it. Stefani's mind spun. Another victim of the Morettas, like Sophia's family. Then help me, she said. What's the key open? The one from the chest? Jake hesitated, then nodded. There's a vault, basement level. Vincent's dad kept his real secrets there. But it's a death trap. Before she could press him, Vincent's voice cut through, shrill. Enough. Everyone, stay where you are. His mask was back on, but his hands shook, his control gone. Stefani stood, her clutch heavy, the knife inside a cold weight. The vault was her next move, but Jake's warning, the ruby-masked woman's taunt, and the killer's gain were closing in. Another guest was missing, she could feel it, and the palazzo was a ticking clock, counting down to dawn and a truth that might bury her. Stefani Germanotta's breath was shallow, her crimson gown tattered as she stood in the wreckage of the ballroom, the collapsed balcony a jagged scar above. The air was thick with dust and fear, the guests' masks cracked or discarded, their faces pale under the flickering chandeliers. Jake Russo's words about a vault in the basement echoed in her mind, a lead that felt like a trap but was all she had. Her clutch was a ticking bomb, stuffed with the locket, bloodied glove, red feather, stolen letters, documents, a key, and the knife etched with the Moretti crest. The note, Moretti's end, was a promise, and the killer was delivering, body by body. For dead, all tied to that crest, and Stefani was running out of time to stop the next. Jake was beside her, his crow mask gone, his bruised face tight with something between fear and fury. Vincent Moretti stood at the room's center, his gold lion mask back on, but his voice shook as he tried to calm the crowd. Ellie Kane was near the bar, her black cat mask tilted, watching Vincent like a hawk. The ruby-masked woman and Sophia Bellini were ghosts, slipping through the palazzo's shadows, and the skull-masked creeps' riddles about walls and vaults gnawed at Stefani's nerves. The killer was close, and she was their favorite game. We need to move, she whispered to Jake, her voice low, urgent. That vault, where is it? Jake's eyes flicked to Vincent, then back to her. Basement, behind the wine cellar. But it's not just locked, Stefani. It's guarded. Vincent's people, or worse. Worse? She raised an eyebrow, her tone dry. Worse than a serial killer dropping bodies like bad singles? He didn't laugh, his voice rough. You don't get it. The Morettas didn't just steal. They destroyed. That vault's got proof, and someone's killing to keep it buried. Stefani's clutch felt heavier, the key inside a burning question. Then we're opening it. You in, or you running again? Jake's jaw tightened, but he nodded. In. But don't say I didn't warn you. Before they could move, a woman's scream sliced through the ballroom, raw and desperate, from the courtyard. Stefani's heart lurched, her legs moving before her brain caught up. Not again, she muttered, pushing through the crowd, Jake behind her. The courtyard was lit by moonlight, the old bloodstain from the jester still dark on the cobblestones. A man in a fox mask lay sprawled, his body limp, a rope around his neck, his mask cracked. A note was pinned to his chest, red ink glaring, Moretti's end. Stefani's stomach churned. 5 dead. The crowd gasped, some sobbing, others shouting, their masks useless now. Vincent appeared, his mask slipping, his face pale as death. This is madness, he said, his voice cracking. Why is this happening? Why? Stefani rounded on him, her voice loud, sharp. Because your family's past is a butcher's bill, Vincent. This crest, these deaths, it's all you. What's in that vault, and who's dying to keep it shut? Vincent's eyes widened, raw, desperate. You don't know what you're talking about, Stefani. I'm trying to save this place, not destroy it. Save it? She laughed, bitter. You're broke, Vincent. Ellie's got the receipts. Your dad stole, cheated, and now someone's collecting. Start talking, or I'm opening that vault myself. The crowd murmured, their eyes on Vincent, who looked like a man staring down a firing squad. Before he could reply, Ellie pushed through, her silver gown catching the light. "She's right, Vincent," Ellie said, her voice cool, cutting. "I've been digging into your deals. Money laundering, fake titles, all tied to this palazzo. The Bellinis were your dad's biggest mark, weren't they?" Vincent's hands shook, his voice low. "You're wrong, both of you. I'm not my father. I invited you here to rebuild, not to dig up graves. Then why's Sophia calling you out?" Stefani pressed, her clutch heavy with the letters naming Bellini. "She says you owe a debt. And these bodies? Their payment." Vincent opened his mouth, then froze as a shadow moved at the courtyard's edge. Stefani followed his gaze, her heart skipping. The ruby-masked woman, her red gown aslash in the dark, stood watching, her eyes glinting behind her mask. She turned, slipping into the palazzo, and Stefani started after her, but Jake grabbed her arm. "Don't," he said, his voice rough. "She's bait. The vault's what matters." Stefani yanked free, her patience gone. "Bait or not, she's part of this. You go to the vault, Jake. I'm done losing her." Jake hesitated, then nodded, his eyes dark. "Basement, wine cellar, look for a false wall. But Stefani, if you're wrong, you're dead." She didn't reply, already moving, her heels clicking as she chased the ruby-masked woman into the palazzo. The corridors were a maze, the air cold, the walls whispering with every step. She caught a flash of red ahead, the woman's gown vanishing around a corner. Stefani followed, her clutch banging against her hip, the knife inside a cold reminder of the killer's game. The chase led to a small parlor, its walls lined with cracked mirrors, reflecting Stefani's masked face a dozen times. The ruby-masked woman stood by a fireplace, her posture calm, too calm. "You're relentless," she said, her voice smooth, mocking. "But you're chasing the wrong truth." "Then give me the right one," Stefani snapped, stepping closer. "Your feathers at a murder scene, you're dodging me, and I've got a knife with my name on it. Who are you, and what's Moretti's end?" The woman's lips curved, her eyes glinting. "Moretti's end is justice, not murder. The crest binds the guilty, and the vault holds their shame. But you, Stefani, you're a complication. Leave the knife, walk away, or you'll join them." Stefani's blood ran cold, but her voice stayed steady. "I don't walk away. You're not the killer, but you know who is. Talk, or I'm dragging you to Vincent." The woman laughed, cold and sharp, and slipped through a hidden door in the wall, the panel clicking shut. Stefani slammed her fist against it, cursing. She was about to pry it open when a blood-curdling scream echoed from below, deep in the palazzo's bowels. The basement. "Jake!" Her heart leapt, and she ran, her gown tearing further, the corridors blurring past. The wine cellar was dank, its air sour with fermentation. She found the false wall Jake mentioned, a stone panel ajar, leading to a narrow stair. She descended, her clutch heavy, her senses screaming. The vault room was small, its iron door open, the Moretti crest gleaming. Jake stood inside, his face pale, a body at his feet, a woman in a sapphire mask, her throat slit, a crest ring on her finger. "Stefani," Jake said, his voice shaking. "I didn't do this. I found her like this." Stefani's stomach churned, her eyes on the body, then on a note pinned to the wall, red ink glaring, "You're next." The vault was empty, its secrets gone, and the killer was one step ahead, leaving bodies and taunts. Stefani's clutch, heavy with clues, felt useless now, and the palazzo's shadows were closing in, with dawn still hours away. Stefani Germanata's breath burned in her lungs as she stood in the vault's cold gloom, the sapphire-masked woman's body sprawled at her feet, blood pooling like a dark mirror. The note on the wall, "You're next," glared in red ink, a taunt that felt like a blade at her throat. Jake Russo's face was pale, his hands raised, his voice shaky as he swore he'd found her like this. 6 dead, all tied to the Moretti crest, and Stefani's clutch was a ticking bomb, locket, bloodied glove, red feather, letters, documents, key, knife, and notes screaming Moretti's end. The vault was empty, its secrets stolen, and the killer was laughing, leaving bodies like breadcrumbs. The palazzo's shadows pressed in, and Stefani was running out of moves. "Jake, step back," she said, her voice sharp, steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "You're not helping your case standing over a body." "I didn't do this, Stefani," Jake said, his eyes wild, his paint-splattered jacket smeared with dust. "I came for the vault, like I told you." She was already here, dead. Stefani's eyes flicked to the body, the crest ring glinting on the woman's finger. Same as the others. Her mind raced, piecing together the ruby-masked woman's taunts, Sofia Bellini's warnings, Vincent Moretti's lies, and Ellie Kane's missing notebook. The killer was targeting Moretti's legacy, but why her? She wasn't part of this. Or was she? The knife in her room, the note, it felt personal now. "We need to get out of here," she said, her tone low. "This place is a trap, and the killer's watching." Jake nodded, his jaw tight, and they climbed the narrow stair, the wine cellar's sour air hitting them like a slap. The palazzo was quieter now, the ballrooms hummed distant, but the silence felt wrong, like a held breath. Stefani's clutch banged against her hip, the key inside a question she couldn't answer. The vault was empty, but Jake's story, his pain, was starting to make sense. He was a victim, like Sofia's family, caught in the Moretti's web. They reached the east wing, the lion-carved door looming. Ellie Kane was there, her silver gown shimmering, her black cat mask pushed up, her eyes sharp with worry. "Stefani, thank God," she said, her voice tight. "I heard the scream." "What happened?" "Another body," Stefani said, her tone flat. "Sapphire mask, throat cut, same crest. Vault's empty, and the killer left a note saying I'm next." "You still think Vincent's just a shady landlord?" Ellie's face hardened, her voice low. "He's more than that. My notebook had proof he's been selling off palazzo artifacts, faking their provenance. The Bellinis were his dad's partners, and he screwed them over. Sofia's got motive, but she's not the killer. Too old, too careful." "Then who?" Stefani snapped, her patience fraying. "The ruby-masked woman keeps dodging me, Jake's a mess, and Vincent's falling apart. You're holding back, Ellie. What else was in that notebook?" Ellie hesitated, her eyes flicking to Jake, then back to Stefani. "Fine. There was a name, a woman Vincent's dad ruined, not Sofia. Someone younger, connected to the crest. I think she's here, hiding behind a mask. But I don't know who." Stefani's stomach twisted. Another player, another mask. She turned to Jake, her voice sharp. "You said Vincent's dad took everything from your family. Who else got hurt? Give me a name." Jake's hands clenched, his voice rough. "My sister, Lisa. She worked for Vincent's dad, got caught in his schemes. He framed her, she lost everything, ended up dead. Suicide, they said. I never believed it." Stefani's heart sank, her mind flashing to the ruby-masked woman's smooth voice, her talk of justice. "Lisa," she said, testing the name. "Could she have had a friend, someone out for revenge?" Jake's eyes darkened, his voice barely a whisper. "Maybe. She mentioned a woman, someone she trusted. Never got a name. But if she's here, she's got blood on her hands." Stefani nodded, her clutch heavy with the knife, its crest a match for the rings. "We need to find her. And Sofia. She's been pointing me at Vincent, but she's hiding dash." A shout cut her off, loud, panicked, from the ballroom. "She's gone," a woman screamed. "The ruby-masked woman, she's dead." Stefani's blood ran cold. She ran, Ellie and Jake behind her, the corridors blurring past. The ballroom was a mess, guests crowding around a body near the courtyard doors. The ruby-masked woman lay sprawled, her red gown soaked in blood, her mask cracked, revealing a face Stefani didn't know, young, pale, her throat slit. A crest ring glinted on her finger, and a note was pinned to her chest, "Justice served." Stefani's knees buckled, her clutch slipping. 7 dead, and the ruby-masked woman, her best lead, was gone. Ellie grabbed her arm, her voice urgent. Stefani, this is bad. The killer's tying up loose ends. You're next. Jake's face was grim, his voice low. She wasn't the killer. She was a pawn, like Lisa. Someone's using us all. Stefani's mind raced, the pieces falling into place. The ruby-masked woman wasn't the mastermind, just another victim of the Moretta's sins. Sophia's warnings, Vincent's lies, the skull-masked man's riddles, they all pointed to one truth: the killer was someone else, someone with a grudge deeper than Jake's, colder than Sophia's. She needed to find them, but the palazzo was a cage, and dawn was still hours away. Vincent, she said, her voice hard. He's the key. We confront him, now, or we're all dead. Ellie nodded, her eyes fierce. Agreed. But Stefani, if we're wrong, we're done. Stefani gripped her clutch, the knife inside a cold promise. Then we better be right. The killer was close, the game was ending, and Stefani was ready to unmask them, even if it cost her everything. Stefani Germanotta's pulse thundered as she stood over the ruby-masked woman's body, the note pinned to her chest, justice served, glaring in red ink. 7 dead, all bearing the Moretti crest, and the palazzo's air was a chokehold of blood and fear. Her clutch was a vault of clues: locket, bloodied glove, red feather, letters, documents, key, knife, and notes screaming Moretti's end and you're next. The ruby-masked woman was a pawn, not the killer, and Stefani's hope of answers died with her. Jake Russo and Ellie Kane flanked her, their faces grim, the ballroom a chaos of shattered masks and panicked guests. Vincent Moretti was the key, his lies the root of this slaughter, and Stefani was done playing his game. She needed to confront him, but the killer was watching, and the palazzo was a maze of traps. We find Vincent, now, Stefani said, her voice hard, cutting through the crowd's murmurs. He's hiding something, and I'm betting it's in that vault or his head. Jake's eyes were dark, his voice rough. He's probably in his study, top floor. But Stefani, he's not alone. His guards are loyal, and the killer's still out there. Ellie's jaw tightened, her silver gown catching the dim light. Jake's right. Vincent's desperate, and desperate men don't talk easy. We need a plan, not a brawl. Stefani's grip on her clutch tightened, the knife inside a cold weight. The plan's simple. I'm the bait. Vincent wants me out of the way, and the killer's got my name on a note. I draw them both out, you two back me up. Deal? Ellie's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. Bold. Stupid, but bold. I'm in. Jake hesitated, his bruised face tense. You're crazy, Stefani. But I owe you. Let's do this. They slipped out of the ballroom, the corridors dim, the air sour with smoke and mildew. A faint haze hung low, and Stefani's nose twitched. Smoke? Her heart skipped. The palazzo was old, its wood dry as bone. A fire would turn it into a coffin. She pushed the thought down, focusing on the stairs to the top floor. The study was Vincent's fortress, and she was walking into it with nothing but clues and guts. The top floor was quieter, the walls lined with faded portraits of Morettis, their eyes accusing. The study door was heavy oak, half open, a sliver of light spilling out. Stefani paused, her hand on the knife in her clutch, and glanced at Jake and Ellie. Stay close, she whispered. If this goes south, get out. She pushed the door open, stepping into a room of dark wood and leather, shelves stuffed with books and artifacts. Vincent stood by a desk, his gold lion mask off, his face haggard, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. 2 guards flanked him, their faces hard, hands on concealed weapons. The air was thick, the smoke stronger here, curling from a vent in the wall. Stefani, Vincent said, his voice raw, tired. You're relentless. What do you want now? Answers, she said, stepping forward, her voice sharp. 7 people are dead, Vincent, all tied to your family's crest. Your dad stole, cheated, ruined lives. The Bellinis, Jake's sister, who else? What's Moretti's end, and why's the killer gunning for me? Vincent's eyes flickered, his hand tightening on the glass. You're out of your depth, Signorina. My father was a bastard, yes. He took from the Bellinis, framed others, built this place on lies. I'm trying to fix it, but you're making it worse. Fix it? Stefani laughed, bitter, pulling the locket from her clutch and holding it up. This has your face, Vincent, and the crest. The vault's empty, your deals are dirty, and Sophia says you owe a debt. Stop lying, or I'm tearing this place apart. The guards tensed, but Vincent raised a hand, his voice low. You don't understand. The debt's not mine. It's hers. She's using you, Stefani, to finish what she started. Her? Stefani's heart skipped. Sophia? Vincent's laugh was hollow. Sophia's a shadow. She's not the killer, but she's pulling strings. The real debt is to someone else, someone my father broke. They're here, and they want it all to burn. Before Stefani could press him, a crackle broke the silence, and the smoke thickened, pouring from the vent. A scream echoed from below, then another, the palazzo waking to chaos. Fire, someone shouted, the word a blade through the tension. The guards flinched, and Vincent's glass slipped, shattering on the floor. Stefani, move! Jake yelled, grabbing her arm as the room filled with smoke, the heat rising fast. Ellie was already at the door, her eyes wide. The killer's doing this, she said, her voice urgent. They're flushing us out. Stefani's lungs burned, her eyes stinging as she stumbled after them, Vincent and his guards behind. The corridors were a haze, flames licking the walls, the palazzo groaning like a dying beast. Guests screamed, their masks useless, running for exits that were locked or burning. Stefani's clutch banged against her hip, the knife inside a grim reminder of the killer's promise. They reached the ballroom, the fire spreading, chandeliers swaying, their crystals glowing red. Stefani's eyes caught a figure in the smoke, a silhouette, masked, standing calm amidst the panic. The skull-masked man. He tilted his head, his voice cutting through the roar of the flames. You're close, Signorina, he said, his tone mocking. But the fire's faster. Find the courtyard, or burn with the rest. He vanished into the smoke, and Stefani cursed, her heart racing. The courtyard, she said, grabbing Jake and Ellie. We need to get out there, now. They ran, the heat searing, the palazzo collapsing around them. The courtyard was a chaos of coughing guests, some burned, others sobbing, their masks gone. Stefani scanned the crowd, her eyes locking on a figure by the roses, Sophia Bellini, her white rose mask stark, her gown untouched by the flames. She was watching, her eyes unreadable, and Stefani's gut screamed trap. Sophia! Stefani shouted, pushing through, her voice raw. You knew this was coming, didn't you? Talk, or I'm done playing nice. Sophia's lips curved, her voice calm, chilling. The fire cleanses, Stefani. The Moretta's sins burn tonight. You're part of it now, whether you choose or not. Stefani's blood ran cold, her clutch heavy with the knife, the key, the truth. The killer was here, in the smoke, in the crowd, and Sophia's words were a noose tightening. The courtyard was no escape, just another stage, and Stefani was the bait, with the killer's blade closer than ever. Stefani Germanata's lungs burned as she stood in the smoke-choked courtyard, the palazzo's flames roaring behind her like a beast unleashed. Sophia Bellini's cryptic words, the fire cleanses, echoed like a curse, her white rose mask a stark accusation in the moonlight. 7 dead, all tied to the Moretti crest, and Stefani's clutch was a Pandora's box, locket, bloodied glove, red feather, letters, documents, key, knife, and notes screaming Moretti's end in your next. The killer was here, hidden in the panicked crowd, their blade a heartbeat away. Jake Russo and Ellie Kane flanked her, their faces streaked with soot, their eyes sharp with fear and resolve. The courtyard was no sanctuary, just another trap, and Stefani was done being prey. Sophia, enough riddles, Stefani snapped, her voice raw from smoke, cutting through the chaos of coughing guests. You say the Moretta's sins are burning, but you're fanning the flames. Who's the killer? And why me? Sophia's lips curved, her voice calm, chilling. You're a spark, Stefani, igniting what was buried. The killer wants the Morettas erased, and you're their mirror, reflecting their lies. I'm no killer, but I know the truth. The vault was only the start. Find the chapel, beneath the roses. That's where it ends. Stefani's heart lurched. The chapel? Her eyes flicked to the rosebushes, their thorns glinting like teeth. Sophia turned, her gown vanishing into the smoke, and Stefani started after her, but Jake grabbed her arm, his grip tight. She's playing you, he said, his voice rough, his bruised face tense. The chapel's a death trap, Stefani. We need to stick together, find Vincent, make him talk. Ellie nodded, her silver gown torn, her black cat mask gone. Jake's right. Sophia's dangling bait, and you're biting. Vincent's the key, and he's running scared. I saw him head for the east wing, probably trying to save his skin. Stefani's mind raced, her clutch heavy with the knife, its Moretti crest a cold promise. Sophia's talk of a chapel felt like a lead, but Jake and Ellie were right, Vincent was the root. The fire was spreading, the palazzo groaning, its walls cracking like bones. She had to choose, and fast. East wing, she said, her voice hard. We get Vincent, then the chapel. But if this goes wrong, you two get out. I'm not dragging you down with me. Jake's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Ellie's eyes glinted, her voice dry. Heroics don't suit you, Stefani. Let's move. They pushed through the courtyard, the smoke thicker now, the flames licking the palazzo's edges. The east wing was a haze, its corridors choked with ash, the air searing. Stefani's gown was in tatters, her heels slipping on the slick floor. She caught a flash of gold ahead, Vincent's lion mask, his figure darting through a doorway. Her heart leapt, and she ran, Jake and Ellie behind, the palazzo's moans drowning out the screams below. The doorway led to a narrow hall, its walls scorched, a heavy iron door at the end. Vincent was there, fumbling with a key, his mask off, his face pale, eyes wild. He froze as Stefani approached, her voice sharp, cutting through the crackle of flames. Going somewhere, Vincent, she said, stepping closer, her clutch grip tight. 7 people are dead, your palazzo's burning, and you're running. Tell me about the chapel, the vault, the Bellinis. Now. Vincent's hands shook, his voice raw. You don't understand, Stefani. This isn't my doing. My father ruined them, the Bellinis, Jake's sister, others. I tried to fix it, but she wouldn't let me. She wants it all to burn. She? Stefani's blood ran cold, her mind flashing to Sophia, the ruby-masked woman, the killer. Who, Vincent? Give me a name. Before he could answer, a shadow moved behind him, swift, silent. The skull-masked man, his white mask stark, a blade glinting in his hand. Stefani shouted, but it was too late. The blade flashed, and Vincent staggered, blood blooming on his shirt, his key clattering to the floor. He fell, his eyes wide, gasping, Lisa's friend. Stefani's heart stopped. Lisa, Jake's sister. The skull-masked man tilted his head, his voice a low growl. You're too late, Signorina. The chapel's calling. He vanished into the smoke, the iron door swinging shut behind him. Jake dropped to Vincent's side, his voice breaking. Stay with me, you bastard. Who's Lisa's friend? Vincent's breath rattled, his eyes fading. Red mask, he went still, and Stefani's stomach churned. 8 dead, and Vincent was gone, his secrets with him. The ruby-masked woman was dead, but her words, justice, echoed. Lisa's friend, the killer, was still out there, wearing a mask she didn't know. Ellie grabbed the key from the floor, her voice urgent. The chapel, Stefani. It's our only shot. Vincent was heading there, and the killer's leading us. Stefani nodded, her clutch heavy, the knife inside a grim reminder. Then we go. But this ends tonight. They ran, the fire roaring, the palazzo collapsing. The courtyard was a war zone, guests fleeing, some trapped, their screams fading. Stefani found the rosebushes, their roots hiding a stone trapdoor, the Moretti crest carved deep. She used a key from the chest, the lock grinding open, revealing a spiral stair descending into darkness. The chapel, Sophia's final clue, was below, and the killer was waiting. They descended, the air cold, damp, the walls slick with moss. The chapel was small, its altar cracked, candles flickering like dying stars. A figure stood at the far end, masked, their gown red, but not the ruby-masked woman's. This was someone new, their mask a crimson raven, their eyes glinting with hate. "You're here," the figure said, their voice low, female, chilling. "Lisa's justice, the Moretti's end. You've played your part, Stefani, but it's over." Stefani's heart raced, her voice steady despite the fear. "Lisa's friend, right? You killed them all, for her. But why me? I'm not a Moretti." The figure laughed, sharp, bitter. "You're their mirror, their fame, their lies. You brought the light, and now you burn." Jake stepped forward, his voice raw. "Lisa wouldn't want this. Stop, please." The figure's blade gleamed, and Stefani's clutch fell, the knife spilling out, its crest a match for the killer's. The chapel's walls closed in, the fire's heat seeping through, and Stefani knew this was the endgame, with no way out but through. Stefani Germanata's heart thundered in the dim chapel, the air cold and damp, the flickering candles casting shadows that danced like ghosts. The figure in the crimson raven mask stood before her, blade gleaming, their voice a chilling echo of vengeance. 8 dead, all tied to the Moretti crest, and Stefani's clutch lay spilled on the stone floor, its contents, locket, bloodied glove, red feather, letters, documents, key, knife, and notes screaming Moretti's end and your next, scattered like a confession. Jake Russo and Ellie Kane stood frozen, the fire's heat seeping through the palazzo's crumbling walls above, the trapdoor to the courtyard their only escape. The killer, Lisa's friend, had named Stefani their final target, a mirror to the Moretti's sins, and the chapel was the endgame, a tomb or a reckoning. "You don't have to do this," Stefani said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest, her crimson gown tattered, her mask itching. "Lisa's gone, and killing me won't bring her back. Let's end this, no more blood." The raven-masked figure laughed, sharp and bitter, their blade steady. "You don't get it, Stefani. Lisa was everything, and the Morettis took her, framed her, broke her. Vincent's father, his deals, his crest, their poison. You're their face, their fame, their lies. Your death seals their end." Jake stepped forward, his bruised face pale, his voice raw. "Lisa wouldn't want this, whoever you are. She was kind, not a killer. Stop, please, for her." The figure's eyes glinted behind their mask, their voice softening, but not with mercy. "You're wrong, Jake. Lisa begged for justice, and I promised her. Every crest, every life, it's for her. Stefani's the last, the spotlight that burns the Morettis name to ash." Ellie's hand twitched, her silver gown torn, her voice low, urgent. "Stefani, keep her talking. We need time." Stefani nodded slightly, her eyes locked on the killer. "You've got a hell of a plan," she said, stepping closer, her heels scraping the stone. 7 bodies, Vincent, the fire, all to bury a name. But why the notes? Moretti's end, you're next, why taunt me? The figure tilted their head, their blade catching the candlelight. "You're clever, Stefani. The notes were bait, pulling you deeper, making you chase. You brought the world's eyes here, and now they'll see the Morettis fall. Your fame, your fight, it's perfect." Stefani's stomach twisted, her mind racing. The killer had used her, her presence, her stubbornness, to amplify their vendetta. She glanced at the spilled knife, its Moretti crest a match for the killer's blade. "And Sophia Bellini," she pressed, buying time. "She's been pointing me at Vincent, feeding me clues. Your partner, or another pawn." The figure stiffened, their voice sharp. "Sophia's a relic, clinging to her own grudges. She knew Vincent's father, hated him, but she's no killer. I used her, like I used you. She thinks she's pulling strings, but this is my stage. Stefani's heart sank. Sophia, another piece moved by the killer, her warnings a mix of truth and manipulation. She took another step, her voice steady. Then show me your face. If I'm dying, I deserve to know who's holding the knife. The figure laughed, cold and final. You want truth? Fine. They reached up, pulling off the raven mask, revealing a woman, mid-30s, her face sharp, her eyes burning with hate. Stefani didn't know her, but Jake gasped, his voice breaking. Claire, he said, his knees buckling. Lisa's friend, from the gallery? You did this? Claire's lips curved, her blade unwavering. For Lisa, Jake. She loved you, but you couldn't save her. I did. Every crest, every death, it's her justice. Stefani's mind spun, the pieces locking into place. Claire, Lisa's confidant, driven by grief and rage, had orchestrated the Masquerade's collapse, using Stefani's fame to shine a light on the Moretta's sins. The ruby-masked woman, Sophia, even Vincent, all pawns in her game. But the fire was closing in, the chapel's walls trembling, and Stefani wasn't ready to die. You're wrong, Stefani said, her voice loud, defiant. Justice doesn't burn innocent people. You're not honoring Lisa, you're twisting her. Put the knife down, Claire, or I'll make you. Claire's eyes narrowed, her blade rising. You're no innocent, Stefani. You're theirs, and you burn with them. Before Claire could strike, Ellie moved, fast, tackling her from the side. The blade clattered to the stone, and Stefani dove for it, her hands shaking as she grabbed it. Claire screamed, thrashing, but Jake helped Ellie pin her, his face a mask of pain and betrayal. Stop, Claire, Jake said, his voice breaking. This isn't what Lisa wanted. Claire's struggles slowed, her eyes wet, her voice a whisper. It's all I have left. Stefani stood, the killer's knife heavy in her hand, her clutch's contents scattered like a broken puzzle. The fire's roar was louder now, the chapel's ceiling cracking, dust raining down. We need to go, she said, her voice urgent. This place is coming down. They dragged Claire to the trapdoor, her fight gone, her face hollow. The courtyard was a hellscape, flames devouring the palazzo, guests fleeing or trapped, their screams fading. Stefani's eyes caught Sophia by the roses, her white rose mask gone, her face lined with grief, not surprise. She'd known Claire's plan, maybe not all of it, but enough. Sophia, Stefani called, her voice raw. You let this happen. Why? Sophia's eyes met hers, heavy with years of pain. The Bellinis lost everything to the Morettas, Stefani. I thought Claire's fire would free us. I was wrong. Stefani's jaw tightened, but there was no time for blame. The palazzo groaned, a beam crashing nearby, and she pushed Jake and Ellie toward the canal, Claire stumbling between them. Go, she said, her voice hard. I'm right behind you. They ran, the flames licking closer, the palazzo's collapse a thunder in her ears. Stefani grabbed her clutch, the locket and knife inside a weight she couldn't shake. The killer was caught, but the truth was a wound, and Sophia's role, her silence, cut deep. Dawn was near, the sky graying, and Stefani knew this wasn't over, not yet. Stefani Germanata stumbled into the Venetian dawn, her crimson gown in tatters, her clutch clutched tight, its contents, locket, bloodied glove, red feather, letters, documents, key, knife, and notes, feeling like relics of a nightmare. The palazzo burned behind her, its flames licking the sky, a crumbling monument to the Moretti family's sins. Claire, the raven-masked killer, was restrained by Jake Russo and Ellie Kane, her face hollow, her fight drained after her confession in the chapel. 8 dead, all tied to the Moretti crest, their blood a payment for Lisa's stolen life. Sophia Bellini's final words, her admission of enabling Claire's vengeance, lingered like ash in Stefani's throat. The canal's edge was chaos, guests sobbing, some burned, others staring blankly as the palazzo collapsed. Dawn's gray light felt cold, exposing truths Stefani wasn't sure she wanted. She sank onto a cobblestone step, her lungs still raw from smoke, her heart heavy. Claire was the killer, driven by grief for Lisa, Jake's sister, framed and broken by Vincent's father. The notes, "Moretti's end and you're next," were her taunts, using Stefani's fame to spotlight the Moretti's downfall. Sophia, nursing her own Bellini grudge, had fed Claire's fire, pointing Stefani at Vincent while hiding her own role. The locket, the crest, the vault, all pieces of a vendetta that burned the palazzo to its bones. But justice felt hollow, the cost too high. Jake knelt beside Claire, his bruised face tight with pain, his voice low. "Why, Claire? Lisa would have hated this. You turned her memory into a slaughter." Claire's eyes were wet, her voice a whisper. "I had to, Jake. For her. The Morettis took everything. I couldn't let them win." Stefani's jaw clenched, her voice sharp. "You didn't win, Claire. 8 people are dead, Vincent's gone, the palazzo's ash. Lisa's still gone. Was it worth it?" Claire's head dropped, silent, and Stefani felt a pang. Grief had twisted her, but the truth was uglier, a cycle of betrayal and blood that Sophia had fueled. Ellie stood nearby, her silver gown torn, her eyes scanning the crowd. "We need to get her to the authorities," Ellie said, her voice steady but tired. "This ends here, Stefani." Stefani nodded, but her eyes caught Sophia by the canal, her white gown stained with soot, her face lined with regret. She walked over, her heels unsteady on the cobblestones, her voice low, hard. "You knew, Sophia. You let Claire kill, pointed me at Vincent to keep your hands clean. Why?" Sophia's eyes met hers, heavy with years of loss. "The Bellinis were ruined by Vincent's father, Stefani. My family, my name, gone. Claire's pain was mine, but I thought her fire would burn only the guilty. I was wrong. You were the mirror, not the flame." Stefani's stomach twisted, her clutch heavy with the knife, its Moretti crest a cold reminder. "Mirror or not, you used me. People died because you stayed silent." Sophia's lips trembled, her voice soft. "Silence was my cage. But you broke it, Stefani. The world will know the Moretti's sins now. That's your truth, not mine." Stefani turned away, her heart aching. Sophia wasn't the killer, but her complicity was a wound, one Stefani couldn't forgive. She rejoined Jake and Ellie, the crowd thinning as gondolas arrived, carrying authorities and medics. Claire was taken, her hands bound, her eyes distant, a ghost of the woman who'd promised Lisa justice. Jake's shoulders sagged, his voice breaking. "I should have seen it," he said, his eyes on the burning palazzo. "Lisa's death, Claire's pain, I missed it all." Stefani touched his arm, her voice soft. "You couldn't know, Jake. Claire made her choice. You're not her." Ellie's hand rested on Stefani's shoulder, her voice dry. "You're not half bad at this detective thing, superstar. But next time, maybe pick a party without a body count." Stefani laughed, weak but real, her clutch still gripped tight. "No promises, Ellie." She looked at the canal, its water reflecting the flames, and felt a weight settle. The locket, the knife, the crest, they were proof of a truth the world would dissect, but something nagged, a shadow in Sophia's words. The Bellini's loss, Claire's vengeance, it was too neat, like a song missing a note. She opened her clutch, pulling out the locket, its photo of a young Vincent and his father staring back. The crest glinted, but the back, engraved with Moretti, had a faint scratch, a symbol she'd missed, a rose entwined with a snake. Her breath caught. Sophia's mask, her family's crest. Had she lied, played a deeper game? The documents mentioned Bellini, but what if Sophia's silence hid more than guilt? "Stefani," Ellie said, her voice sharp, nodding to a gondola. "Time to go. The cops'll want that clutch." Stefani nodded, slipping the locket back, her mind racing. Claire was the killer, but Sophia's role, that Roseanne snake symbol, was a thread left dangling. She boarded the gondola, the palazzo's flames fading as they glided away, the dawn's light cold on her skin. The world would know the Moretti's sins, but Stefani felt the weight of an unfinished truth, a secret Sophia had buried in the ash. She leaned back, her clutch heavy, her eyes on the burning horizon. "This isn't over," she whispered, her voice lost to the canal's ripple. The killer was caught, the masquerade was done, but the palazzo's ghosts lingered, and Stefani knew she'd carry them, a melody unresolved, long after Venice faded. Thank you for listening to these incredible stories. Our team would really appreciate it if you give us a like and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed.